Entire week there's been one stock that's on focus, and it's thanks to deteriorating corporate governance standards. I'm talking about Fortis Healthcare. Let's bring up the intraday chart for you. So for 2 days in a row, we saw the new board of Fortis get in a huddle around 4 p.m. with the board meeting lasting all the way past midnight till 2:30 a.m. And after two such marathon long meetings, finally the hospital chain has come out with its earnings. And, besides the earnings and the loss being widened, there are a lot of other stories and a lot of devil that's in the fine print. What's interesting is that the new board has also decided to make public the main findings of the forensic audit commissioned by and handed over to Luthra and Luthra. Let me go across to Pankaj. He tracks this stock very closely. Pankaj, now you've got the stock a bit in the green at 136.30, but clearly, deteriorating corporate governance standards, losses widening. It's quite something to wonder that how it is that you saw stalwarts from Dr. Ranjan Pai of Manipal to Sunil Munjal joining hands with the Burmans and others getting in line to bid for Fortis Healthcare without proper due diligence.
So, Nayantara, now the big question comes in that what happens to those bids? The point that you've raised is quite important. And that's why these numbers were important. So, of course, one is the story, what's happening with the ex-promoters and how the money would be recovered from them and if it will be recovered. But the other story is that what's happening with the numbers. So, 830 crores is the sort of provisioning that have happened on a one-off basis, but still the EBITDA is weak. One can say that in Q4, the management was more focused on who's selling or who's ready to buy, and all the processes were done. And that's why the focus on business was quite limited. So, there could be some upside to these numbers on an operational basis. But apart from that, now the interesting thing will be, are there still 5 bidders which are in the race? Do they submit their final bids? The conditions have been different this time around. So what happens now will be interesting. The numbers are clearly one-off. You cannot really compare these numbers. These numbers would not continue as well, in this sort of a format, and very difficult to call for a judgment. But now that you have FY18 numbers, will the bidders change their mind or will the bidders change their bids? That's the key question to watch out for. 28th of June is when the last date is, and probably in a couple of days you should get some more details as well. So next few days could be action-packed lined up for Fortis, and whether the date on it being sold, to whom it's being sold, should be decided pretty soon.
Pankaj, let's just talk a little bit more about what else has been revealed by the new board. Like I said, 2 marathon-long meetings. So you've also got this investigative report that you alluded to that was done by Luthra and Luthra, which says that the scope of the audit was limited, and in that limited audit scope, Luthra and Luthra has unearthed at least 445 crore rupees of diversion of funds via the intercorporate depository receipts. And that's also after the management raised objection. Something else, and you heard it first right here on ET Now. The erstwhile chairman, the founder of Fortis, Malvinder Singh, as shocking as it sounds, was still an employee of the hospital chain. You've had months since the scandal has broken out, and yet Malvinder Singh was retained and was still an employee of the company. We also understood that it was a very one-sided employment contract that he had signed, Malvinder Singh, that is, where he could terminate his own employment at his free will without paying any kind of a penalty. But if the board were to cancel the contract and terminate and sack him, there would be a hefty penalty that would have to be paid. So once again, questions that when you still had someone like Malvinder Singh on the rolls, how is it that you had industry stalwarts submitting bids? We saw an all-out war for Fortis Healthcare. I'm going to pose that question to J.N. Gupta, the founder and MD of SES, and also a former executive director at SEBI. Mr. Gupta, we've discussed this before. All is clearly not well when it comes to corporate governance. It's a totally different debate whether SEBI and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs are acting fast enough for all the issues that have been coming to light recently. But what do you make of this? Look at the skeletons that continue to tumble out of Fortis cupboards. And I would imagine that, there's more to come. We saw a similar situation with Vijay Mallya and the UB group, and it was sold, etc. So how do you think it is that, companies are allowed to bid for such listed entities without proper due diligence? And why would they do it?
You have asked so many questions into one question, but I will answer from the last. There is no law which prevents a willing buyer and a willing seller to conclude any deal unless until it is not in the national interest. So as far as the hair is concerned, if I am ready to knowingly or unknowingly getting into a ditch, you can't stop me. Okay, so I will not say that why many people are still want to buy, because they must be seeing the business sense. That is one. The question comes here that what Luthra and Luthra has found out about 400 and odd crores of diversion of funds. You remember about in February, Deloitte had refused to sign the audit reports, and it was reported that 500 crore worth of transactions related parties were noticed. So I understand, or I presume that it is the same amount of money which had come earlier in public domain, that they have diverted 500 crores to their related parties, and which they very generously said that we will repay it. Okay, after committing a fraud, you say, I will make good the loss. That is second. Third issue is very clearly that it is not an isolated case that what has happened in Fortis. You look at a string of events. And then Bexy, there are issues. Fortis, you know the issue. Religare is one more entity where there is need to be investigation, because if you see, in last 4 years, Religare has given such a negative return to the investor as compared to all other finance companies, all other companies in this field. So something is really wrong there, and we have been pointing out in Religare that there have been issues of diversion of funds from one entity to another. And then coming back to the contract of Mr. Malvinder Singh, whatever the contract may write, but if there is a fraudulent conduct, the contract condition will not be taken against the company, because when you conduct a fraud, you can't expect to be compensated for a dismissal. So I would say that yes, there is a mess. Now with all these reports coming into the picture, and when the company board saying that they have taken up the matter with FIU and SEBI will still certainly swing into the action at a fast pace, because till now everything was in the air. Now everything is in written form, it is in a concrete form, and everybody knows what really happened. And we will have to find out, or rather SEBI will have to find out what is the real thing, how much is the whole, and probably SEBI will appoint a forensic auditor for the entire issue. And I would say that SEBI not only should appoint forensic auditor for Fortis, they should appoint forensic auditor for Religare also, because I feel that there is much bigger hole in Religare than this.
Okay, so you feel there's a bigger hole in Religare, but either way that you look at it, it's turning out to be one big mess where you've got various entities now trying to recover money, whether it's from Fortis, Religare, let's not forget the Daiichi arbitration as well. I'm sure Daiichi will also try and throw in a spanner in the works as far as the Fortis attempts for recovery goes, because Daiichi believes that it has the first right. But Mr. Gupta, I want to get back to something else, and that is that the auditor this time round has also not signed off on the fourth quarter results. You've been with SEBI. What is this practice of auditors not signing off on quarterly results? In a lot of other cases also we've seen, then they just resign. Is it good enough to let them go? They just absolve themselves saying, I've resigned. That's not good enough. That needs to be corrected.
I tell you, please understand, howsoever emotionally we may analyze the situation, but one has to be practical also. Auditors are not captive. Now, auditors have only two options: either to say that we cannot give you a result, we cannot give you audited accounts because I don't have the proof or I don't have any wherewithal to know what is the thing. Or they say, I am moving out, let somebody who is willing to put his neck in do that. Because either we have to give some powers to auditor that, okay, we will do forensic audit and do something. But till such time, auditors themselves do not have a power of forensic audit. They have a very limited scope. I agree. It looks very strange that I say that I am not able to audit. But then you got to understand my practical constraints also. I would say that SEBI should look into this, or maybe ICI or Ministry of MCA should look into this, that either they equip the auditor with powers to do, otherwise we will have to have this resignation thing coming on. And I would say the resignation thing is a good in the sense that at least now people are realizing that this is a tool auditor has to tell the company that if you are not behaving well, If you are not giving information, we can always resign and put you into the public scrutiny. And I always see that this is a very welcome step, because till now auditors used to resign only on personal reason or commitment and blah, 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 whatever they say. So it never used to give the truth. Now at least some truth is coming out, and let investors decide, and let regulators take corrective action. And I would say that this is a precursor to good governance in future, and I would feel that maybe down the line some independent directors will also take this step, so as to bring some sense of responsibility in the independent directors.
Also, I just wanted to understand about the point of Fortis. Now it's going to be sold. There have been bidders which, have been applying for it. Of course, they look at the Q4 numbers, the comments, maybe revise their bid. But do you think that that process needs to be done fast track, because the company is cash starved, and the delay that this audit takes, the delay that this time takes in terms of contingent liability, that much away it will keep from the various M&A players that are right now in the forest. So do you think that one side has to be what happens to this particular asset and how it is sold, and one side is what's happening with the fraud, and that liability will come on the previous promoters and not on the new promoters?
See, first of all, for any corporation or any company, if there is uncertainty, it is very bad for the investors and the company as well. So looking into from that factor, it is always advisable that whatever has to happen, whether it is to be sold or something, it has to happen as soon as possible, so that the further value erosion is avoided. Now, coming to who will buy it, what will be the condition, it will be depending upon that person's or that entity's view on the business and estimation of what are the current liabilities, what could be the future liabilities, and what could be the risk that they have to imagine. See, when they buy it, they are putting money, but they are also taking all the liabilities of the company, present or future, and they will also be subject to any court cases that may come because of what Fortis has done. It can't be that they will say that all the past issues of Fortis, we are not responsible. So there has to be some sort of a difference. That it could be that personal misconduct of Malvinder Singh or somebody else would be the personal issue between Malvinder Singh and the law agency. But anything that has been done on behalf of the company will stand responsible. And if at all the new owner takes a guarantee or some sort of a commitment from Malvinder Singh, it will be as good as the paper written on it, nothing beyond that.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time for us. Always good to get perspective from you. That was, of course, J.N. Gupta talking about what he makes, from this entire